Hello Fly Nation and welcome to the Freestyle Your Life podcast, the one and only podcast inspiring you to live your authentic greatness while teaching you that less is more. I'm your host, Erneste Kaller-Zimmermann, and I'm on my mission to help you to be the hero you were meant to be and to live what you came for in life and in business. Remember, the quest we came here for is to discover our true nature, explore our potential and share it by living. Hello Fly Nation, I'm thrilled to introduce you to my today's guest, Eric Nevins. Eric Nevins hosts the Halfway There podcast and he's the author of the 8-Day Experience. We will be exploring how to find back to our authentic self and live spiritually aligned with the universe. In this inspiring interview, Eric shares his process of spiritual reading. Wish you so much fun and takeaways in this episode. Because I just love this name, but you will explain us how this came. So we just met actually in Tampa in February, and so glad to have you on the pod today, Eric.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So, well, I have two questions I wanted to discuss with you. And afterwards, I would just say, let's be on the fly and just follow where God will take us, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
So we are both sort of the fan of being authentic, right? I know you just did a webinar on that. And anyway, it's my topic anyway, because freestyling your life means to free your life from whatever sucks. Could be anything, partnership, workship, things that bring you into illness, whatever it is, might be different for everybody. And to style life at own authentic terms. So getting off the roads and off the cage and whatever we try to behave or think we have to do, what is put on us through evolution or childhood or whatever, to becoming just ourselves. And that's, for my opinion, and what I experienced in my life journey, is the only thing that leads us to ourselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's my emphasis with everything I'm doing, and of course with my guests also. So I bring up guests who relate to this topic and who have their own experiences, because I believe in life-changing stories of whoever it might be. It doesn't have to be an expert, a so-known expert, but I also have people which I consider as expert, because they have a big resilience factor in it. They have survived trauma or whatever. Losing a child could be anything, and they have gone back up again. So for me, they are sort of experts too. So there's no diploma or whatever needed here. So what I would love to explore, I saw on your Facebook site you just had a question there. What do you wish you could tell your younger self about spiritual practices?
Yeah.
That's a great question, right? And I saw the people discussing there, and well, at a certain age, of course, we have some experiences in every part of our life, and some might be good, some might be bad, and even, we have struggles and everything, but the challenge is to accept whatever is, right?
Yeah.
So to go against the challenges and against the struggle is, for what I found out in my life journey, wasn't the healing factor or wasn't the solution. For me, it was just to accept whatever it is. If it sucks, it sucks. So I have to watch out if I can change it. But by avoiding it, we just get more of it, right? So I'm keen on your intention to that, also from the Bible and the Christian point there. So let me say, you are the founder of Christian Podcasters Association, which are podcasters related to this topic inside, right?
Exactly. Christians who are podcasters. So
yes.
Yeah, generally not. I don't know if you know this, but the Christian category in iTunes is actually the biggest one. It's got the most people in there. A lot of them are sermons that are, put out there after a Sunday morning. But there's a whole bunch of us who are also trying to use our gifts and abilities in a podcast as well. So those are the people I'm trying to attract there.
Okay, maybe I do the same, but I don't have the emphasis on the Christian part yet. So I have a channeling trainership and everything. But for me, I just did it to understand myself better, right? But I'm not working on it. So what I do with it, whenever I'm in sales or whenever in preparation for an interview like that, I tune into that. So I have the intuition how the space is and how open up the space to be secret, and that's how I use it.
Yeah, absolutely. I started that group because back then, when I started podcasting about 3 years ago, there weren't very many Christian groups on Facebook where we could kind of get together and help each other. The Christian groups that I could find for podcasts were really just link dropping groups where you could come in and drop your link to your latest show, and you might find some other people that you like there, but there wasn't really any connection. In fact, they discouraged it. One place I tried to ask a question like I did, like you mentioned, and they wrote me and said, "Hey, don't do that." I was like, oh, okay. So I decided to make my own group, and that's why I started that group, to bring us together. And I've seen some really cool relationships develop in that group. So there are some people. I'll give you an example. So you mentioned that I did a webinar recently with a friend, Tracy, and she was in a little mastermind that I did with a guy named Mikhail. Mikhail is he is a audio editor, and he does a great job at that, cleaning up audio, making it better. And Tracy had a bunch of episodes that she was behind on. She couldn't get them published. She was having a hard time working through getting everything edited. They got together in this mastermind, and Mikhail said, "Hey, I'll do some for free for you." And so they did. And today she's paying him for his services, and she's cranking out episodes regularly because she doesn't have to do all the work. So bringing people together was really what I was trying to do with that group.
Yeah, that's what I felt out of it, and that's really I'm standing really for compassionate love and for collaborating. So in my opinion, everybody working on his own and against the others is completely the wrong way. I think we only can succeed. For example, we as podcast colleagues here or whatever other field this might be, we can only all together sort of succeed in participating, in supporting each other, right?
Absolutely.
So that's my feeling onto that.
I'm a firm believer in the phrase, "a rising tide lifts all boats." And so, as long as we're all going up, then podcasting is growing exponentially. I don't know if I think Steve shared this at New Media Summit in Tampa, but at the end of 2000, or at the beginning of 2018, there were 400,000 podcasts. At the end of 2018, there were 600,000 podcasts. Yeah. It's like a 50% growth rate in 1 year.
Yeah, because it's just a fantastic medium, right?
Right.
To share and for the listeners. So I decided to give mine for free. So I'm airing twice a week, and I'm discussing everything related to my topic. Could be also I have a life and business, because for me it's both together, right? So my audience is entrepreneurs, so well, I'm myself, but at the same time, I'm here with you and I'm here with my listeners, and I'm a businesswoman. So for my impression, you cannot share it. I'm always both.
Right.
So if I grow my in transformation and develop myself, this also leads to growth in the business field, right? Because some people, they try to separate it. I think it's both. We are one person and we are always both.
Yeah, it's all connected.
That's what I think. So my question would be, what means authenticity regarding the experience with God? Because you have a group there, right? Could you tell us more about that, and maybe to the question with the younger self and the spiritual practices?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I asked that question on Facebook, and that, because I'm actually going to do a retreat for our young adults at our church in a couple of weeks, and so I'm thinking about spiritual practices, and I'm going to kind of share with them what spiritual practices are, and kind of habits that they can develop to have an authentic experience with God. And I was really curious what other people would say. And some people put some really great answers in there. But then also asking that question is an interesting story as far as me finding my own authentic self, right? So I tried for a lot of years, and I'll come back to the authentic experience of God, I promise. But I tried for a lot of years to be the guy who was a teacher, because I was in school. It took me 9 years to get a 3-year degree. It took a while. But in that environment, teachers are the ones who are generally celebrated and given positions. And I wasn't really a teacher, but I tried really hard for a long time. And then I learned that I'm really just a conversation starter, that I love to start conversations. And so that question, you'll notice, and we've been friends on Facebook for maybe a month, but you'll notice every once in a while I'll ask questions, I'll maybe 2 or 3 a week, to try to start a conversation. And then that actually turns out to be really, really effective for doing things like that. So getting into a relationship with God, like an authentic relationship with God, I actually think for me, conversation and questions turned out to be the way that I really learned to interact with him. So I much prefer, I can tell you the story of how I learned it, but I had to go outside of my tradition that I grew up in order to find a practice that was that kind of connected me to. Too much sun here. Yeah, that's okay. That connected me to God in a way that I actually could feel His presence, and so I think that authentic experience with God does help you feel His presence. And so I get it. Not everybody is going to define or understand God as the personal God that I define through Scripture, but I think you have to approach Him honestly, and that includes asking your questions. That includes coming to Him when you don't feel like it. I actually wrote a giveaway on my website called "What to Do When You're Mad at God," right? Because that's an experience that many of us have, and then there's just not a lot out there about how to handle that.
Yeah, but I'm so glad, Eric, that you mentioned that and that you bring it up, because we all know if everything running smooth and easy and lovely, it's not a challenge to feel abundant, right?
Right.
And to be in a good connection. But if everything breaking down and we hit rock bottom, and then we sort of, naturally ask, please, where are you? Yeah. Even maybe those who are not that in a strong relationship, right? So, and that are the tough times that make us wonder, where the hell is he, right?
Right.
And why is he not supporting me?
Yeah.
And well,
you know what I love is that so I think a lot of us think that the Bible's just going to tell us how we should be or whatever, but the Bible actually contains all of these experiences of God that we have. And so I wrote that based on a little book in the Old Testament. Nobody can find it. Most people have to use their table of contents to find it, called Habakkuk. So he's a prophet, and he had that same problem. He had this issue where he was like, hey, God, people are not doing the things that you told them to do. And I don't have to tell you the whole story, but he asked God the question, like, what are you going to do about this? And I thought that was so powerful to take it to him and say, okay, what's going on? Then God answers him, and he's even more upset because, hey, I don't like that answer because, you're going to punish him, but we're all going to suffer. And he does this really interesting thing. He says, I'm going to sit down here and wait and see what God says, what kind of response I'm going to get to my question. And I think that's a powerful posture to take, to ask your question, to sit down. And it doesn't have to be, it may take time. We don't know how long he waited. He may have waited 5 minutes. He was a prophet. So maybe he may have waited a year. I don't know. It doesn't say, but he waited. And sometimes we want to skip over the waiting part, but that's the part where we're actually forged in a relationship with him. It's where trust is developed, is born.
Right. But of course, that's the hard part of it, right? So if I share my example, so I was all of what went wrong and was not authentic to me. I was lying, behaving like that, being not authentic. I was lying constantly to myself, and that led to multiple diseases wherever. So I finally faced that, right? And that's when I started. I went to my dad and said, please give the Bible. So I didn't read too much of it before, but then in that case I did, because I was not able to manage anything and was just terribly ill. And so I was looking for connection there. And on the other hand, of course, I said, I already saw the other side. So I said, please, what did I do so wrong to end up here, right? With multiple cancer and heavy diseases. So, and my solution to it was, I was acting too much. I was managing too much, being a single mom with 2 sons, 2 companies and everything. Just trying to get by, and of course totally overwhelmed, and that was much too much. But I didn't have the solution how I could step a little bit back, because I was bringing in the money, right? So if I wasn't working, who was? Nobody, right? So there was not really a solution to that, but I saw I was running, open eyes, I was running against the wall, and finally, that turned out that was the case. And I was pushing harder and being anxious and fearful and everything, that was not the solution, right? So for myself, the solution was I was there in a case I couldn't move anymore. So I had all the muscle problems and everything. Wow. I lost my consciousness, and that there was nothing to do anymore, not even to move. So I was stuck there to really have time to think everything over, because there was nothing else no more to do or manage or whatever.
Wow.
And my solution was to indulge in this, right? And that's, of course, I didn't want to do that, right? I was trying to prepare everything. So with euthanasia and patient disposal and everything like that. And I still got, I wasn't old actually, and I still got young sons. And but I had to face the case how it was. So, but I was still asking, please, why is it? What did I do so bad to receive that challenge, right?
Yeah. Did you get an answer?
The answer was I had really to indulge in that. So I had to stop fighting. I was never a type I was running to so many challenges in my life, but I'm not the person to give up. But in this special case, it was not, of course, not giving up, but it was to stop to fight against or for or whatever thing. So it was just to accept whatever is, because it's stupid to fight against it. It's already like it is, right?
Right.
So what I learned is if we can do something about it, what the situation is we don't like, so well, act on it and change it. And if we cannot change it, because it's not in our hands, so like you spoke about not being in control, right?
Yeah.
That was a big topic for me, because I felt totally I lost control over everything. And but that was my lesson to learn also in this case. And either we can change it, then change it, or if we cannot change it because it's haven't given or whatever, then we have to accept it. Because worrying and fighting against will not solve the problem. Right.
You have to accept reality before it can change. And so
doesn't mean we like it or we agree with it. But I think this is for our listeners here is very important to mention. But to fight against something that already is, and we are not in the position to change it, then fighting is just losing energy, right?
Totally. That's one of the things I like about Habakkuk there, is his story. So he has this questioning, right? And he's going through that and he's having this conversation with God. And in the end, he's so impressed by the response that God gives him. There's this beautiful little poem at the end where he says, listen, even if there's no cattle in the stalls or, wheat in the fields or whatever, no grapes on the vines, I will still worship you. I will still trust you. And it's just this beautiful thing. So he had to do the same, right? He had to accept, okay, this is what is going to happen. And I'm still going to trust God because his plan is bigger than what I can even imagine. And he sees the whole picture. It's interesting, but he had to go through that. And I think we do too. We have to go through the experience of asking the questions, of accepting reality, and then moving through it in order to, get to the other side, really. Yeah, because when we look back, of course, we might have done things different or made different decisions, right? But now we know better because now we can see the whole field. In that situation, we couldn't. We could just see whatever is in front of us, right? So there's the saying in looking backwards, what would have been better. But in that situation, it's just difficult. So, but I learned a lot from Neil Donald Walsh with his conversations with God. I bet you did.
Over and over, because I thought, when he gained wisdom with that, and all the recordings, so I highly recommend this. Why shouldn't I, right? So that was my approach on that, and just by him asking all the questions there, and I learned a lot for myself also.
Yeah, I can imagine. That sounds like a really incredible time in your life, and I can only imagine how that would shape you. Yeah.
It was. So I'm glad I'm still here, and I made it. And but I had to learn to emphasize my feminine part and to give that space and to rest and chill out. But actually, as such a managing person and my masculine side dominating, I didn't even know how to do it.
Yeah.
Right, I was running all the time, and I should have delegated more to my partner at this time and to my sons. But, mom, do it later. And then they don't do it. You have kids yourself, you know how it is, right?
Yep.
So I always said, if I talk too much, until I talk, I have done it, right? So it was always me doing everything. So, but that was what I tolerated, right?
Right.
And that's what I learned. It's always two parts in it, right? And there's one doing something or not doing something, and there's the other part on the other side who doesn't like it, right? And even especially in relationships, right? So women, most of the time, the women they attempt the man to be on the Valentine's Day with flowers, whatever, right? But they very often they don't tell him what they expect, right?
Right.
So how can he know, right?
Yes.
And so I think we should be much clearer in communicating whatever we need, whatever we want, and whatever we are prepared to give in whatever field, relationship or in a joint venture or a workshop, whatever it is. And we need to be authentic. We need to set barriers, whatever we tolerate or not.
Right, absolutely.
Otherwise, we can't be authentic.
Yeah, so I had gone to a conference last fall with Cliff Ravenscraft, who's one of my podcasting heroes, and he said both of those things, and I was really impressed by that because one, so we have the life we tolerate, right? Like that's just you know, if you're happy with dishes in the sink, then that's how it goes, right? That's what you're going to have.
Yeah.
And that's just a trivial example. But also, his wife made this point really well. She said, you have, or 100% of unspoken expectations go unmet.
Yeah.
Right. Because you simply can't know that it's an expectation. And then that causes other conflict. And I tell you what, my wife and I struggle with that all the time. Like how do we communicate exactly what we mean and what we want? Yeah. And then how do we, and sometimes, you have to be able to ask and accept a no if that's not something somebody else can do. My wife works and she's getting ready to go to school. There's going to be times when she's
with all the kids.
Yeah, she's not going to be able to be there the way I'd like her to be, and I'm going to have to be okay with that. But we're communicating about the expectation of what does it look like in this? Yeah. For that reason.
Yeah, and I think really in all areas of life, communication is to master that skill openly and without meaning any bad meaning into it, but just communicating what we are prepared and what we can do, what we want to, and what we can tolerate, and whenever it's tending on the opposite and not good for us, it's asked to tell right up front, very polite and friendly. There's nothing to be bad about it, but tell, no, that's not working like that.
Right.
So whenever I was sort of the over-helping person. I was so helpful and onto everything I already got on my list here. I was helping everybody out there, and myself was even in a better physical situation from health point. So that was stupid, but I was still working on my helping genius.
Yeah.
What my driven motivator was. So that was complete silly, right? Because I never learned to say no.
Yeah. Was that because your identity was wrapped up in how helpful you were?
Not really, but it was a sort of a motivator.
Yeah.
it wasn't my my identity, but it was really as one part of getting me go.
Gotcha.
Yes, but the problem was I'm very empathic, and why I did act, I had a lot of illness time and time to think, which I didn't have before. So that's afterwards now, seeing backwards. In my consideration, I got plenty of the accidents and of the really heavy illnesses like cancer that kept me out of the whole trip there, not for 2 weeks like a cold, but for a long time.
Yeah.
And with broken leg, whatever. And so I was out of the normal life, and I had time to think. Hey, what's happening here? What I'm doing here? How can I react? How can I manage? What's going wrong here?
Yeah.
All these questions, right? So
it's interesting. If you don't make the margin in your life, the margin will come to you.
Exactly.
Right. And that's what happened to you.
Yeah. So glad you bring this in one sentence on the table. So sometimes I'm still German. Sometimes my English is sort of funny here, but I hope it's okay. But yes, it's just like that. And I was such an empath and never learned to say no. And before saying no, I was anticipating how the person I would tell no to, how they would feel. And I actually felt their feelings. And that was
right.
what caused the initial problems, because I couldn't separate my feelings, what was my feeling, from all the feelings of the loved ones, the colleagues, whatever, because it was just a mess.
I bet.
Right, to tune into all these thoughts and all these feelings of everybody, and forgetting self-love and protecting myself totally.
Right.
Well, I got the time to think it over.
Yeah, no, I get that, right? It's going to come to you whether you want it or not. That's why I think spiritual practices are really important, right? Because if you develop them, I'm not a fan of discipline, just be honest up front, but as you do them, you actually can create that margin in your life. And so there are certain practices that people have used, Christians have used, especially for thousands of years or hundreds of years anyway, that create that margin for you. So I think that's really important.
So that could be what?
Well, so I'll give you an example. So one process is one called Lectio Divina, or you could just think of it as spiritual reading. And spiritual reading is a process where you read take it like a short passage of the Bible, and you basically meditate on it. That's the short version. Yeah. But you read it, you reflect on it, you respond, and then you just remain. You let it sit with you and just take some time to reflect and ask God, like, what is he trying to say to you through this passage? Okay. So that's actually the process that I used to write. I started writing these 8-day experiences. And I took that process that I'd learned and stretched it out over 8 days, because I think so many of us have so little margin. We're running around and we get bogged down if we don't have time to do it every single day. I've been in Bible study. I mean, I've done everything, right, in the Christian world here, at least in the United States. They are like, we do these long Bible studies that I never do. You're supposed to do every day during the week and then talk about at a meeting time. I've never finished one of those. Like, I give up. I don't do it. So I created this Bible study to kind of give you room for that. So, okay, maybe you can't do it every day. It's 8 days. So do it every week, once a week. Do it every Monday or every Wednesday or whatever works for you for 2 months. And I actually think taking that time, getting this passage of scripture just into your mind, into your heart, thinking about it, you'll probably have more insight, more connection to God over that 2 months with one passage than you would over, 40 days with a whole book of the Bible.
Mm-hmm. And that's sort of, you come together, or is it online, or what is it?
It's online. So it's a PDF that people can buy from my website, ericnevins.com. But it's just it'll walk you through, how to do the meditation, how to do the ask the right questions. And then, you can get a journal and write it all out and go through it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But is there a way to talk it over?
I do have a Facebook group for that, so that people can jump in there after or even during, and we can talk about it as well. Yeah, because that community piece is important. I'd love to hear what people have to say.
Yeah, because I always emphasize that, because there's so many material out there, and everybody's sort of, you have to do this and that and everything, but everybody's already overwhelmed with everything, with emails, with all tasks to do, with whatever, and so I believe less is more. We have to become more of our true self, discover it. I totally lost myself in all that struggle and work and everything I had to do here. I had to find back to myself and then develop and align with it. And that's why it's my own life experience and journey, what I'm talking about here. And then align with it. But it's a process. It's not just like you read the book or a PDF or do a course and then your life is transformed. I transform my life over and over and over, and I'm still not ready with it.
Absolutely. Well, and I think life is like that. It's the constant, revolution, constantly asking that question, what do I want? Yeah. What am I getting to where I want to go? Is super important. So I've heard business people use this analogy. Like if you take your business and you take all your people and you just fire them in your head, you don't have to really fire them, but fire them in your head, and then start asking the question, okay, who would I hire back? Right. And for what role? Where would I put this person? Where would I put this person? Maybe that person I'm not going to bring back, whatever. And it's an interesting exercise for a business, but imagine doing that for your life. Right. So if you take your life, scrape it, kind of like you had to do, right? Scrape it off, take out all the expectations that people have of you, whatever. And you go, okay, what do I want here? So I have my religious commitments. I have my business commitments. I have my family commitments. I have, social commitment, whatever they are. Which ones are you going to add back? Which friends are you going to, do you want to keep? And I wonder if we did that exercise on a regular basis, if it would change how we live.
It would.
Yeah.
It would. I'm totally. I'm into that. I had to do it in various fields. So it is clear if you're so very ill and facing death, there's of the so-called friends, nobody's left there, right?
Yeah.
So that's just a normal process, because one of them, they cannot see you suffer, right? They don't want to see it, and the others are not prepared to give something they wanted to take, and now there's nothing more to take, so they are gone. And that was really bad to not to observe it, but to be right into it. And so for that point, most of the people in my life, they took off, or I took off.
Yeah.
Because I said, well, I was giving all the time. That was fine for them. So now I'm in the position I cannot give, because I'm just my energy is gone, and I'm facing death. So I cannot be the helpful that I've been before. And now there's nobody around, like, could I help you now? So that would be in a normal case, right?
Right.
So everything should be in a sort of a balance. The universe is everything is a balance, and everything has an opposite of the things, right? And if we are just living one part of it, the turning point will be coming, right? So it's up and down and dark and bright and everything. I don't even know what has no opposite. So it's sun and moon. It's everything. Maybe you have an idea what thing doesn't have a opposite, but most of the things do, and we just have to accept it. And if we are living on the one side only, that leads to problems.
Right. Totally.
Right.
Yep. I totally agree.
I was living the masculine working side there too much, and not respecting the feminine side and the side to rest and everything, and that was not healthy.
Yeah, I think totally. I think that's true. I find that to be the case for me when I think, and really this goes back to expectations, right? So when I think that other people expect a certain thing from me, or there's other people have a certain kind of success and I want to have that success. So I've got to do all the same things. I actually had so when I was preparing for this retreat, I'm still in the middle of that, but I'm getting there. And I was trying to think about, okay, I don't want to be the guy who stands up and teaches. I think I said that earlier, that I'm not really, I don't want to be a teacher. That's just not who I want to be. So I'm thinking, but that's every retreat I've ever been to is like that, where, somebody teaches 4 times and then, okay. So I had to think about that. And this came to me as this idea is that you can do this like you can do this like who you are. Okay. So that's very freeing. I can be who I am. I can take off the expectations of, how a retreat normally goes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have 4 conversations and I'm going to teach them 4 practices. And that's going to be basically it. I think that has potential to be extremely valuable, but it's how I want to do it. And so I'm even thinking about doing that in terms of speaking. And I haven't figured out how to do this yet in a public speaking situation, but I would love to make that more of a conversation, right? Where even like in church, I don't know how what your experience of that is like, but here mostly it's
interactive.
Yeah. Is it? Yeah. So I should be interactive, I think. And I would love to kind of be somebody who is part of doing that. Okay, we'll get up there, but really I'm trying to create a conversation between, the congregation and scripture and God, between me and the congregation, and then the people in the congregation as well. There's all these kind of conversations. And when you think about it like that, that kind of gets me excited. I think that's really fun.
Yes. And I think probably everybody getting the most out of it. You know? Because you have all energies and everything into it.
Yeah. But going back to that sort of, like you were saying, the idea of taking on the expectations of what other people were expecting of you and how people were taking and giving or whatever, I had to do that too. I had to kind of come to this place of know who I am is I'm a conversation starter. And the expectation, I get it, on a Sunday morning is going to be that you're going to come and impart the word from on high in the pulpit. But what if instead we all have a conversation and we all have an experience of God here together? Would that change what we think about each other and about God and how we interact in the world? Yeah, heck yeah, I think it will. Me
too. That would be great.
Yeah.
So you need to go for that.
I do. You know what? I just gotta. So I've thought about doing that with.
I'm your fan.
With Habakkuk,
if you need me, I'm just right here.
I love it. That'd be great.
Because I truly believe we need to interact on that and not to assume other things and just to have our own. I'm sort of very intuitive. Not everybody is, but we have our own meaning of things. Well, but we shouldn't judge, right? So once we come over the point of judging what the other does, we are steps ahead.
Oh, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Because if we're talking about something here and we have the same spirit in here, but if it wasn't like that, it would still be okay, because this is your opinion and I might have a different one.
Right.
So everybody can state it. There is nothing bad about it. We are not cloned, right? We don't need to be in one opinion all the time. And so even in relationships, we don't.
Right. Absolutely.
But we would love to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that in normal consideration, that wouldn't be normal, because you have your point of view and your side and your experiences and everything, and I have mine on this side, and they might be completely different. Probably they are. So everybody is looking out of his side of
yes.
possibilities and experiences. And
one of the things I've learned from podcasting is to get curious, to be curious about other people, because everybody, two things. One, they all have motivation. Everybody has a reason for what they do. And sometimes, at least in my tradition, we simplify that in ways that are not helpful to the person, and they don't actually honor the humanity of the person. And by that, I mean like the whole human being, like you're talking about. But also, I don't know, there was another thing, but I can't remember what it was now. Because it was really good. Shoot. Well, think of it. Sorry.
Okay. But well, I completely, for myself and my manner, I completely stopped judging. So that was a process to come there. And I myself don't want to be judged, right? So
right.
Whatever I'm doing or proposing, whatever, this is my point of view and my opinion. And that might be for you and everybody out there of the flight.
Yes.
Completely different. And it will be, because everybody of us is different.
Yes, that's what it was. It's actually the experiences. So the other thing I've learned through podcasting is that experience is super powerful, and that we see the world through the filter of what we've actually experienced. Yeah. And
so everybody does, and that's quite normal. But we can really make the effort to break free from that.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
I just made it. Was it easy? No, of course, not at all.
Right, but that shaped you.
Working hard.
Right.
Right.
But it shaped you in some really important ways, right? It changed who you were.
Right, and so I completely stopped that, and I would even say if I was not asked for my opinion to whatever, by a friend or whatever, I would not approach to tell him. Right?
Right.
Because that's my opinion, and if he wants to know what I think about it, well, of course, I will make up my ideas on that. I will take time on that. But if I'm not asked, why should I tell up front, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Because that
judging also, right?
tends to be rude. Yeah. Yeah. There's no reason to insert your opinion there unless, and again, that goes back to, I don't think we always know what people's motivations are, right? We don't know why they do the things they do or what they're actually worrying about. And so one helpful thing, we're back to questions, is just to ask, right? Like just ask. And then, so if you think your opinion would be helpful, ask if you can give it, or ask if, what the motivation is, like, why are you doing this thing? I'd like to know more about that. And that actually giving somebody the opportunity to listen or to explain and then be heard is huge, is so powerful and helpful to people. We live in a culture where, information is getting very cheap, right? The noise is getting louder and louder. People putting things out, all manner of social media, blogs and even podcasts, right? But being heard is rare. Somebody feeling like, okay, not only did you ask a question, but you listened to what I said and you were interested in it. Wow. Yeah. That is a rarity. It's powerful. And that's something I love. I actually, I learned, I'll tell you how I learned how to do that. I worked in a call center for 10 years. That's a long time to work in a call center. That will almost kill your soul, right? Like it is mind numbing. And it's, there's a lot of, getting yelled at all day sometimes, but I learned to ask questions and to be quiet and then to take some notes or go find the answer that I need, to the point that eventually, at least in that job, I could tell within about 5 words what the person said, what they needed and how I was going to help them. But I use that skill now in podcasting, right? Like I use that skill every single time I interview somebody, and I ask a question and I just be quiet. And sometimes I'm quiet through the awkward pauses, right? I'll leave it. I'll just wait. And that then opens up a window because people feel compelled to talk and fill that void. And then they'll share something else with me because I gave them a little time to think, a little time to kind of process that. And I get some really great stories, some really amazing stories about God. And my favorite thing is when people say one of two things. That's a great question, because that means they feel like they have to think about it. Or I love it when people go, I don't usually tell this story. Or sometimes at the end, they'll be like, man, I haven't shared that story in a long time. I had one guy, this guy's so great. He goes barefoot all the time. He lives up in Conifer, which is about, half hour, 45 minutes west in the mountains of the Rocky Mountains here. In Denver, and he's barefoot all the time in order to identify with children around the world who don't have shoes and living in slums and eating out of garbage dumps.
But
that
you know
he
what?
helps.
That is really healthy. I have.
Is it really?
Time too. That's really healthy, and you get the connection with the earth, right?
Yeah, interesting.
They take it. They with the shoes. It's not at all the connection you get.
Totally.
Like barefoot.
Totally. But he told me some stories about how he told his wife she was pregnant before she knew, and all kinds of weird stuff. He was like, dude, I never tell that story. But man, that's like the best compliment as far as I can see.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I have a sort of similar approach on that. I love to interview, but most of the times I have 2 or 3 questions based on whatever the people have as topic or whatever, or want to talk about it. So that shouldn't be mine. But then I let them just be in the flow, right? So it shouldn't be all the time of 30 minutes, 1 hour, whatever. I don't want to cut my talk off here. So that's why I always try to have space until the next interview is coming.
Yeah.
Because it's just the situation how it goes. But I want to let the flow run it. But just if somebody is just talking for hour and hour, it's a monologue, right?
Right.
So I want to have it interactive.
Yeah.
That's for the listeners outside. A monologue is boring, right?
Right.
So they are not sitting in front of the screen. They are in the car or on the run or walking or in the gym or whatever doing. And if it's talking, it's like meditation, and you're likely to fall asleep, right?
Right.
And that's why I always want to have it interactive.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to think of my listener as if they're sitting at the table with me. So they're sitting at my desk, I got a chair back here. I imagine them sitting there, and every once in a while I'll just say, did you catch that? Like, that's a huge point about what they just said. Just to kind of let them know that I'm still thinking about them. I know that they're there, and I'm glad that they're there. That's a super important piece to this. I had a professional broadcaster tell me, he's a legend in Denver, but he told me, hey, you have to talk to just one person, right? One person, and that way everybody in your audience will feel like you're talking to them, and you're including them in the conversation with whoever it is. But it's easy to just to have a conversation and be oblivious and act like you're inviting somebody into that. But it's harder to just be aware that there's actually three people in this conversation. There's you and me, and then there's our listeners, and they're interacting with what we're saying at a different level. And so, because it's past, right? So they're kind of just observing. So just digging into that and trying to offer them something, besides just our conversation is huge.
Right. That's why sort of at the end, I always, maybe the expert like you or me, sort of doing a wrap up and a recap, just to put it the important things and the main points to just to throw them as bullet points. To remember it, right? Because otherwise it gets lost. Of course, they can read it, and everything of you will be in the show notes to read it. But just to wrap it up, just a short summary of whatever has been talked about. So did we cover everything you wanted to say, Eric? Or is there anything we missed or we... by the way, I love the interview with our colleague, Joseph Barron.
Oh, thank you.
Had on your podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so fascinated. So he was so honestly and authentic, sharing all the struggles there, and
oh my goodness,
in plenty of them with the divorcing and childhood. I was so relating to whatever he talked there, and choosing one of the parents, and terrible, yeah.
Yeah, he's such an interesting guy, and you're right. He was very honest and very authentic. I love that about him, and he just really brought it. He brought a story. I think his experience of God is also very interesting. So that was great for me to hear. And I like Joseph a lot. He's a good guy.
Yeah, but the approach he made from all the struggles there,
totally,
and really he made it, and then back to zero, right? And then realizing what's the goddess situation in it, right?
Right.
Because often we just take things for granted. That's just how mentality is, and I learned to be really grateful for even nothing.
Yeah.
When everything was taken, right?
Right.
So, facing death, there was nothing anymore. I was just grateful for my dad and my sons and my dog to be there, and hopefully I could stay. That was everything there was, right?
Right.
So could have been gone mad in this situation also, and of course I had phases of that, but I always try to come back to gratefulness, and after all it was, otherwise we wouldn't be talking.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I think that's the point of being grateful and thankful for our talk here, or for the sun. There's so many we could be grateful. We just don't see it, right? But if we look clearly and very conscious, because we are in such an unconscious, on autopilot drive through our day, not even realizing what's going on here. And I had to learn this while losing my consciousness, because everything was gone. And after my illness, I had to relearn everything, right? And how the washing machine goes, how to drive my car, everything that runs on autopilot, and we even don't realize it. I had to relearn all the processes, right? Because it was just gone. So that was what led me to be in presence, right here, right now. I'm with you, and I'm with the listeners, and nothing else matters, right? That's the spot here. And before, I was a multitasking genius, trying to do everything at once, at least 7 or 8 times. And yeah, that's not healthy.
Wow, no doubt.
That's just how it is. And so I learned a lot out of my struggles and challenges, whatever has been there. So, but I did interrupt you. Sorry. What did you have anything to?
No, that's fantastic. I've enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
Okay, we covered everything.
I think so. Yeah, we have.
My dear Fly Nation, thank you for listening in today. I hope you liked this episode number 6 with Eric Nevins on how to find back to your authentic self. Feel free to share the Fly podcast with your friends that might also profit from the insights discussed. Don't forget to subscribe to be sure to catch your next success story with Michael Levitt airing on Thursday. Please rate and review either on freestyleyourlifepodcast.com or on your favorite podcast directory such as iTunes, Stitcher or Spotify. You can always find all links and recaps in the show notes description on freestyleyourlifepodcast.com. Have a great day and go for your dreams. Remember, Fly Nation, break free and fly. Talk to you next week. Bye.